because we're starting all. So remember what crown are we doing?
19.
So we go single, right, units, who's crown, we'll choose 19, right? And we can save it like this, okay? Now, in real life, we will start scanning this on the patient mouth, right? But because we don't have scanners for everyone and we already have the impression, all we'll do is import the files, right? So we'll go to import scans, okay? And then I have saved it on the downloads in my case. You put it whatever you save it, and the first file that is asking you is the mandible. So we'll double click there. Then the second is asking me is the maxilla. Okay. And that's it. The preparation is, remember, we do a scan before we cut the crown if you want to preserve the anatomy. So the software will create the anatomy in the same way that the original you have. In this case, we'll start designing from zero. So we'll go OK. And then the scanner icon will disappear as soon as the files are low, and we'll go directly to the design part. So we'll click next, and then what is the first step we do? You guys remember? Probably again, this is all resetting. This significant ones. We use generic in this. In clinics, remember there is a material that we already have, which is what? What's the name of the zirconia that we use? Zircon prime, right? So this material, we don't have it in Dash, but in the clinic software, you'll select Zircon prime. So the parameters of that material are already in the software, and the crown will be designed according to that specific material, okay? So here we'll say it's a zirconia, and then I'll go next, right? So you just do, the first thing we'll do is mark the finishing line, right? So remember, in this column here, this side, we can always bring the opposing cast, make the other one a little bit more translucent, I'll say. You can put color if you want prefer, okay? So whatever works better for you. We also have some pictures. Remember that we can take HD photos. You can bring it up if you think they're helpful for you, okay? Here, you have these tools where you can mark the margin, and then you click once, and software helps you to, if it's a good quality margin crown, you can always, normally the software will do it very nicely for you. If it's not a good margin, sometimes it's hard for the software to find it. There's a very good impression, I'll say, with nice retraction, so it's pretty much there. This little size button makes you modify the margin in a larger way, or if you do it like this, it says a smaller diameter, so you can play with that, okay? Now, the most common mistake that we do when design these types of crowns is we tend to move we are sometimes thinking that the margin will not be sealing perfectly, so we tend to put the margin line a little bit below the original margin of the crown. And that tends to make the crown very bulbous on the cervical portion. So you always, when you're doing an exam and see a patient, you can tell if it's a classic church on the anatomy of the teeth and make it almost done for you. Sometimes if it's not a great impression, or you didn't capture the entire anatomy of the contralateral side, sometimes it will not be ideal. Again, for crowns like that, we recommend you at least to scan to the contralateral canine. Now with the Trios 5, really takes you a minute to scan an arch. I recommend you to scan the entire arch. Of course, we see people outside that maybe scan 3 teeth and maybe the occlusals of the opposing teeth and design crowns like that. But I want you to maximize your patient knowledge, right? I want you to practice on your patient how to scan. I want you to maximize the patient. So I advise you to try to scan the entire arch, right? So you spend time learning scanning, and also I think you'll get a better deal with the crown at the okay? So a few things I need to understand here is if you don't want the design that the eye is giving you, we can always click here and select, for example, the anatomy of the contralateral tooth, and we'll copy the same, okay? Or if you click here, there is a huge library of different anatomy teeth that you can select from, okay? So again, you have all these three options. And if you are doing a pre-scan, also you have the option to select the anatomy that the patient originally has, okay? Okay, so this is the proposal that is giving you. Now, what is this little, let's review all this. So we know this is to show the posing, right? This is for the crown. This is like the cutting the die. This is helpful on the previous, when we were marking this little scissors. It's just think like the die system that you can almost reuse it more, so it helps you to see more of the tube next to, or just reuse and keep it almost like a simple die system, okay? So this is the path insertion, and this is the crown. So what is the other button? So we know is model color or color. This just makes you more a realistic look of the porcelain at the end. So don't worry too much about that. And this one shows you the contacts and how heavy will be in the proximally and in the occlusion. We will go with that tool later. And this one, you see this, okay? This is we're violating the minimum thickness of the porcelain, okay? So it doesn't tell you how much unless you use this little button here. So if you click here, and I throw a line like this, now in here, I have it's a total cut of my view, okay, of the crown, okay? So if you notice here, we're violating, this is the ideal thickness, and this is very cool because I can actually measure this, okay? So for this, it's 1 millimeter, ideally the minimum thickness of the zirconia, okay? But here, this is this little space, the cement space, and if I measure this, so we're violating, 0.25 millimeters, the thickness. So, what do you guys think we should do? Should we add a little bit of porcelain here? If you see in tools here, it will tell me that my design is 0.28 millimeters thinner than the ideal thickness. So if I correct this, I can click here and automatically will correct it for me. But now, what's going to happen? All right, so what do? We let the patient go like that? Yeah, why not? Or you want to grind the posing, or maybe we'll adjust it in the patient mouth. Well, just do what your instructor tells you. But my point is, it's important for you to understand that maybe that's how important, how much reduction you have, right, before. So that's very important to understand. Now, point two, I don't know. We can ask 10 different dentists. We'll probably hear 10 different answers, right? Maybe they say, well, 0.7 maybe is a good thickness, okay? Or maybe we can touch the posing depending on what it is, right? So we can bring this up like this, and I can see that cuts maybe is with one that is eating there, right? So you learn a lot when you design, right? So the whole purpose for us here is, it's not that we want you to be technicians, but if you start designing some of your crowns that you prep, you learn all these defects that you have in your prep. It's hard for you to mark the margins because you didn't capture a good margin. If you have issues with rotate it more in any angle that you want, okay? So that helps to do big movements. The second is the morpho tool. Morpho tool, I like to use it on a free. You can also move it unidirectionally, but I like to do it on a free. This one helps me less time. This is not a great amalgam, so for example, you can bring this maybe a little bit closer. And also another classic error that we see is the marginal ridges. You try to match the marginal ridge, right, of the tooth next to, right? So sometimes the eye is very deficient there, so you can really do it like that and work on that. Sometimes also, remember on the scales, if you want to get them tighter, it's very easy to move them up and down. If you cut the bar, you move both at the same time. So there's a lot of things that we do with the spool. It's one of my favorite stools just because sometimes if you're deficient, maybe on the lingual, you can just pull this a little bit thicker, crown makes it thicker there and get with the ideal thickness. Like this, because I tweak it, but see, I can move this up and down like that, okay? So, that's basically the morpho tool and what we use it for. So we go to big moments to more specific moments. And then the third one is like a think on a waxing spatula. So we can adjust the size of the spatula, you can make it smaller or bigger. And then we can add, remove, or smooth, okay? So if I add, let's say I want to fill this a little bit, so I'm adding. And this is the strength of your spatula. So we can add very little or we can add much more, okay? And then same with removing, I can remove some and also smooth. Sometimes I like to smooth around the, if you have them lined, it's not that it will open the ceiling there, but it helps to smooth this a little bit. So sometimes I like to do that if it looks kind of rough, okay? These are presettings, so Pre-Shape gives you some presets for adding, I think 2 for removing, or 3 from removing, and 1 from smoothing. So these are, the knife is pre-adjusted with the idea of strength, and it helps you to use the preset, but you really can customize it whatever you want, okay? And then the last step is proximal complex. The proximal complex, I tweaked a lot with this, so now it's off. So the presettings here are already pre-made for the material. So if you click there, it will set it exactly accordingly to the ideal material that we have. Now, AI sometimes makes a very tiny content. I like a more broader content. So if you say paint, you can add a little bit more, and then I click play, and it will create my contact right here, okay? Same if maybe it's too bulky or too lean, well, we can delete a little bit that one, and maybe add it a little bit more in the center. If you want to click here, and it will make it for you. If you don't like the proposal of AI, right, so we can add a little bit more, click play, and I have my proximal contact, okay? So again, AI helps you a lot, and again, this is Assist AI. Remember, I teach you that there is also another feature that will do everything AI. We can go over that today. We have time, but that's pretty much what we do. There's some other setting here, a little bit more advanced. So if you mess up the crown, you can just say start from a new design, and it will make a new crown here and start all over. Or another settings that are sometimes nice to use, the articulator. So if you can click on the articulator, you can bring an articulator. Remember with trios, we can record the patient lateral movements. Remember when we went over that? So at this point, if you click on the articulator, here, this is the digital articulator, but if you record the patient movements, it will show here. Use the patient real movements of the patient, so you can design the anatomy of the crown based on the lateral movements that you register if you went over that. However, that feature, remember, is hard because when you ask the patient slide to the right, they open their mouth, and it's so hard sometimes to record good lateral movements. But if you do a good, nice recording, you can use the real movements of the patient to design the anatomy. Okay, but again, the way you do this is you bring the articulator, and you can just click on play, and you can see if there are some kind of interferences or not. So it will mark depending of the movement. You see working, not working, or protrusive. So if it shows you like a blue line is patient is having here clear cane and guidance, but if you see a blue line here, is that the patient is having maybe an interference in working, right? Or if it's black, it's probably protrusive, okay? So again, this is a little bit more advanced, but really the if you see an interference here, you can go back and fix it with your waxing tool. Really, you can just simply click here, and the system will get away of all the interferences for you. So really, it's much easier to use that tool, right? So that's simple. Basically what I want you guys to practice a little bit, right? So try to play with all the different tools that we have. Here there will be some, maybe there is a hard contact. It will tell you where it is, so you can push that and fix it, or you can accept it. Remember, this is the area that the porcelain was thick, and I forced it to add porcelain. So it's telling me that there is heavy contact there. You probably see when you deliver the crown, right? So again, you guys can smooth it out, right? So getting less, right? Or you can, but remember when you do that, now it shows red, right? So we are violating the ideal thickness of the crown. Does it make sense? And then if I force it, I can correct it automatically. And that's it. So then you can go to the next step, and the next step basically is the fabrication of the crown. So Trios you can hook it up a milling machine and just send it to the milling machine, the design that you submit. However, remember, we don't connect your crowns that you design directly to the milling machine, because imagine 100 people, 120 people doing this at the same time would be crazy. So we prefer to save the crown. We don't connect our system to our own milling machine. So what we'll do is make you save the crown, right? You can save it wherever you want. And in the near future, hopefully in May, we actually finalize. Remember, we're looking for a lab technician who will help us with all this and painting models. He's finally starting in May 1st. That's something I hear this week. So we'll have a digital flow, and the crown is designed that you can have a file here that will say production, that person or faculty. You have any options. You will work with a faculty one-to-one and have that design approved. You can work by yourself, send the crown design to that new person. Maybe she can look it up, modify it if it's needed, and we can mill the crowns for you. You will have different options depending on your level and what the faculty already approved. And again, you have this software in every single chair. So if you finish your scanning, patient, if you have time, you can work in the chair that you've been working and finalize the design in the chair. Work with your faculty. If they approve the axiom lab form, you can push it and have the crown saved, and then you just save the file, and then you end with a STL file, right, that it will show you the crown. Make sense? And then again, we'll talk more about printing and milling and in our lectures, but this is the type of file we use for production. Make sense?
Yes.
So what we want you today is just practice a little bit with the software.